Slumber, my darling, thy mother is near, guarding thy dreams from all terror and fear. Sunlight has passed, and the twilight has gone. Slumber, my darling, the night's coming on.
Boom!
In Langley, Virginia, at the intersection of Saddam Street and Osama bin Laden lives the CIA's Counterterrorism Center, where analysts study intelligence on overseas extremist groups. At FBI headquarters, agents prepare watch lists of foreign militants wanted for questioning.
Action.
And now, Showtime is working with Joint Terrorism Task Force veterans, FBI consultants, police technical experts, and Arabic and Islamic cultural advisors to create a never-before-seen television event, Sleeper Cell. Because the enemy is here. Michael Ealy stars as a Muslim FBI agent who risks his life going undercover to infiltrate a Los Angeles terrorist cell.
Fark doesn't trust anybody, except maybe Osama.
Darwin is a very complex character who has literally the weight of the world on his shoulders. He basically has to befriend people who he despises, people who have bastardized his faith.
I'm putting together a team of holy warriors, believers who are ready to strike without warning, without pity.
Oded Fair co-stars.
My character is Faraz al-Farak, who is the head of this sleeper cell. And they're getting organized for what they call Yom Adin, which is Judgment Day, on which they will attack.
So in this case, we are a sleeper cell for Al-Qaeda operating in Los Angeles.
Where are we going?
Paradise, of course.
The method of the show is to limit information. Each member of the cell is only limited to the knowledge of what he is carrying out at that moment. And so, we only find out parcel by parcel what the big picture is. The actors are in the same pot as the viewers, so we are along for the ride as well.
Sleeper Cell scripts are believed to be the first in television to feature an American Muslim character as the hero.
Who exactly is this undercover agent of yours anyway?
Obviously, we can't reveal his name.
It says here he's a practicing Muslim?
Yes, ma'am, he is.
Whatever his name may be, we don't have many like him. Right now, this is the only active penetration of an Islamic terror cell ongoing in the U.S. We should make the most of it.
Brothers, sisters, what is the greatest threat facing Islam today?
American aggression in the Middle East. The Zionist occupation of Palestine.
The real threat is in our hearts.
I think it's time that we all realize that Muslims are not the enemy. It's the extremist Muslims that are the enemy. And that they don't represent Islam, they don't represent the Muslim community.
When the issue of terrorism started creeping back into the popular culture, it was creeping back as if 9/11 had never happened. You were still getting sort of generic, cackling, evil bad guys. You were getting generic Eurotrash terrorists. You were getting terrorists from, what's the fictional country you like to name?
Oh, Unnameddistan.
And
evil Arab terrorists from Unnameddistan.
Not even Arab, but evil,
or Muslim,
vaguely foreign-looking terrorists. And it started to really make us angry because it seemed like, well, wait a minute, the world has changed. How can you trivialize 9/11 by coming back and now portraying terrorism in the same way we used to portray it beforehand as this sort of very escapist, simple, almost cartoon level?
So what then do terrorists look like? Says the project's Arabic and Islamic technical advisor.
We don't know. I mean, we have to look at everybody as being potential terrorists. You can have racial profiling, but at the end of the day, it's about what's going on in the person's mind.
Like Tommy's. Day job, manages a bowling alley. Raised by liberal parents in Berkeley. Loose cannon.
You use a $100 million jet to drop bombs on civilians, and you're a hero. You deserve a medal. You take him out by blowing yourself up on the corner or in a bus, and you're a terrorist.
Christian, French, ex-skinhead, Hollywood tour guide by day, thug by night. Estranged from his Moroccan wife in Paris, who introduced him to Islam but rejects his radical views.
The Holy Quran permits an eye for an eye. If the unbelievers kill our civilians, we have the right to do the same.
Who are you? I'm the angel that will be watching over you.
And Ilya, from Bosnia, substitute teacher,
William.
cold killer, has never gotten over seeing his entire family murdered in the Balkan Wars, hates the U.S., but loves American hip-hop.
We gotta go, 'cause I left my wallet in El Segundo.
People ask, like, well, why aren't all the terrorists, you know, Middle Eastern? And I said, well, Richard Reed and the young,
He's not a terrorist.
Well, you know,
John Walker Lindh
John
was
Walker
an enemy
Lindh.
soldier in a war. It's not the same.
But
as
my
being a
point is
terrorist.
that, they were all Islamic converts that became radicalized and wanted to do harm to the United States.
There are blonde, blue-eyed terrorists. John Walker Lindh is one person that the character is partially based on. There's another terrorist that I know less about. They called the Blue-Eyed Emir.
Al-Qaeda operatives are ordered to blend into their neighborhoods and communities.
You're a trip, man. Look at you, blonde hair, blue-eyed, white boy talking about Jewish deli and halal.
That's why I'm the perfect weapon, man. Just another American idiot cruising the mall. I'm harmless.
Islam has a bad publicity problem right now. So I had to re-educate a lot of the cast members about Islam to show them what true Islam is about versus what Islam is thought to be about.
My dad said that Muslims don't like us and they don't eat bacon.
You think I don't like you?
I don't know.
I like Marcus, and he's not a Muslim.
So why they fly planes into buildings?
Just because there are some Muslims that are bad doesn't mean all Muslims are that way, does it?
No. No. But can you eat bacon?
Yes. Turkey bacon.
Americans in general have a misconception about Islam because we have irresponsible people in society, some of whom are generals actually in the army.
Like three-star General William G. Boykin, Deputy Undersecretary of Defense Intelligence, whose religious rhetoric drew cries for his dismissal, both here and abroad. Marine Brigadier General James Mattis and his remarks outraged human rights advocates around the world. President George W. Bush, according to the New York Times, was unaware that two kinds of Muslims live in Iraq, Sunni and Shia. Whether you call these examples Islamophobia or ignorance, the creative team behind Sleeper Cell hopes to contribute to its remedy.
And I think any piece of fiction and any piece of nonfiction really is an attempt at sort of dealing with some issues that society at large is dealing with, and I think this is no different than that. It's a hot-button issue. It's a more sensitive issue. We run the risk of offending or inspiring conversation, and I think that those are all good things, and I don't view it as a kind of exploitation.
We are ignorant in many ways with regard to the attitudes and the ideological background of the people that are attacking our nation. And one of the most important things is to know your enemy.
One way to do that is to pay attention to the nuances of some well-known Arabic words, the true meaning of which may surprise you. Allahu Akbar.
Allahu Akbar.
Allahu Akbar.
Allahu Akbar. It means God is great. It could be both as a battle cry in Islam when you are actually in battle, and it is part of a prayer.
Al-Qaeda.
Al-Qaeda. It means the base.
We need to make a statement with these guys. We need to teach them what happens when they mess with the base.
They basically hijack the name, and they use it as a symbolic meaning of their movement.
The Al-Qaeda training manual states Islamic governments will never be established through peaceful solutions, but by pen and gun, word and bullet, tongue and teeth. Islam is the religion. Muslim is one who practices it. It's one of the fastest growing religions in the world. An estimated 1.2 billion followers, with as many as 6 million in the United States. The number of terrorists, unknown.
You know what Islam means in Arabic? Surrender to God's will and peace. These guys have nothing to do with my faith.
The Quran. Arabic has no standardized English format, especially when spelling Islam's holy book.
The Quran can be interpreted philosophically or literally. The philosophical translations of Islam are used by certain people in the world to manipulate other people to carry out a terrorist act. The literal translations are very different. They are about peace, about forgiveness, and they're about giving instead of receiving.
Jihad.
Jihad is struggle, and it's actually got nothing to do with terrorism. Jihad in the Quran is mentioned as a struggle, but it is not a word that you can use to say, oh, well, the jihadists are people that kill innocent people.
Tell me, brother, what is the greatest jihad?
To fight the unbelievers in battle.
No.
No?
The greatest jihad is to battle your own soul, to fight the evil within yourself.
That is something that everybody can identify with because, you know, a path taken is really just dependent on a decision here and a decision there. And you make the wrong decision a couple times, it's not hard to see how a person can end up in any one of the cell members' position. Before you know it, you're in way above your head and following blindly.
Remember, Christian, Satan's best trick is mixing truth with falsehood. You understand the difference between the two, don't you?
The members of the cell want to hear that Farrak's way is the correct way to go. That's what they want. So Farrak has to do very little. He just has to direct them the right way. And he's a great salesman, and they're looking to buy.
Darwin, let me ask you a question. What do you expect to come out of all this?
It's none of your business.
Are you kidding me? Hey, man. Everything you do is my business. I play Special Agent Ray Fuller. I've pretty much managed the case for the Bureau. I think when you have somebody working undercover, their handler, I mean, it's just a very, you know, critical relationship.
Fuller would pay Darwin's bills. He takes care of his whole personal life outside of the case while he's undercover.
But a handler can't handle some things.
Uh-huh. You disappear for days and you don't tell me why. Isn't that the same as lying? There's something going on with you, Darwin. Why won't you trust me?
I told you my life is complicated, Gail. It's clearly a mistake. Why get a woman and her child involved in your work and in your world? The thing I would encourage people to understand when watching this is that Darwin is always undercover. You cannot say that you know the real Darwin.
Cool.
Gail is the average person caught up in this, who has no clue that the guy that she's seen, that she likes, you know, might be involved in these huge events.
Sleeper Cell has a multi-ethnic cast and production crew, including a Muslim director and screenwriter. It's fiction, but could there be a real Darwin out there?
Well, I hope there's a Darwin in the real world doing what Darwin's doing. You know, what are the actual possibility of that, numbers-wise, percentage? I don't know. I believe we're the good guys, and I hope the good guys have a guy on the inside somewhere.
Even the creators of Sleeper Cell don't know, despite their access to those who really do.
We don't know anything like that. These guys, you know...
These guys, you know, listen, they know they're working on a TV show.
They don't even tell us when we get them on the phone, and we haven't been able to get them on the phone for 3 days because they've been in rooms where there are no phones allowed. They won't even tell us where they are, and you know, we're not going to ask them because we don't want to know. We want them to go and do their job and do their best to keep us safe and our children safe and help us craft the most realistic version of our show we possibly can.
They say Angelinos have seen it all. Riots, wildfires, earthquakes, mudslides. Wait till they see us.
Wait till they do indeed.
A Showtime original television event. Sleeper Cell, only on Showtime.